Hi, I'm Steve Laska, President and Chief Investment Officer with VisionQuest Wealth Management. This month, our founder and CEO, Steve Peters, wrote his economic update for the first quarter, where he looked back and he starts off by saying, let's not beat around the bush, and he uses a lot of words like dread and dreadful throughout the commentary. We're predicting about 0.7% growth in the first quarter, which is slightly above the consensus out there, which is at 1%, but higher than the Atlanta Fed's model of 0.1%. Last year, everybody had estimates out there that were pretty slow, and when they went back and revised the number for this year, the economy had actually contracted during the first quarter of 2014. Lots of this was blamed on weather, and while a lot of folks pushed back and said weather can't be the only reason for slowing down the economy, at the end of the day, in the middle two quarters, the U.S. economy grew by 4.8%. So in fact, weather can have a huge effect. We've had some of the coldest Februaries on record last year and then again this year. Back in August of 2011, payroll was reported at zero. Just a few years ago, any positive number in payroll employment would have meant something positive for the economy. In March, it was reported that we had 126,000 new jobs, yet most economists downgraded their estimates for the GDP going forward. Steve goes into some depth, looking even back at the 80s and 90s when 4% growth was normal and 2% growth was considered slow. Now we're in a position where 2.5% growth is kind of expected, and anything less than that would be slow. At the end of the day, it's important for us to remember we really shouldn't look at quarter-to-quarter data when determining what we're doing going forward. Again, we saw last year where negative growth meant nothing because in the middle quarters we had a pretty good expansion. We're also a pretty large economy right now. But Steve Peters, since we are coming up on the Kentucky Derby, does an analogy about the size of the jockey riding a horse and what that kind of impact can have if the horse were to be the economy and perhaps the jockey were to be Steve Peters instead of Steve Laska. But I'll let you read more into that. I really encourage you to take just a few minutes to read his commentary. He's a pretty entertaining writer, as most of you know, and his information is usually pretty on point.